Now, if you learn nothing else from this course, I want you to learn this because it really is the most important part of creating a WordPress theme. And this is the WordPress hierarchy. Here's a diagram that you can find either on the WordPress website, or if you go to wphierarchy.com, you'll see this. To get to it, just type in WP hierarchy into Google, and you'll come up with the template hierarchy in the Theme Developer Handbook. It's about halfway down the page, and you'll see the visual overview here. The other thing you can do is to go to wphierarchy.com, and they have another version of it that's sort of similar. They've just changed a few things here and there. The concepts are still the same. What this shows you is what template files apply to which pages on your website. Now, the most important thing to know is that we've got this index.php. This is your default template. If nothing else exists, this is the one that WordPress is going to show you. If you look at this diagram in gray, all these things that are gray are different page types. So for example, we've got archive pages, singular pages, post pages, static pages, front page, blog post index, 404 page, search results, etc., etc. And then it shows you, it maps back to what those template names are going to be. So those orange ones are going to be your variable templates. These teal ones are going to be your secondary templates. These dark blue ones are going to be your primary templates. So from here, we can start to map out which templates we need in our project. When you're planning out your theme, you're going to want to have a good sense for what kind of information is going to go in your website and how you want to show that. So for this very basic theme, I want to have a general page that's got a header area, a footer area, and some content. For a post, I want to have two columns. I want to have one with a sidebar showing categories and tags. I want to have my title. I want to show a little bit of metadata information about the post, the content of the post, and then again, my footer. And for my archive page, I want to keep this very basic. So we're just going to show the featured image. We're going to show the title of the archive, the excerpt of the archive, and again, we're going to have our sidebar with the categories and tags on there. At the very bottom, we'll have some basic pagination. So how does all this map back to the WP hierarchy? Well, let's take a look at all the different things that we're going to need. First of all, we're going to need some sort of an archive page to show our blog archives. Then we're going to need something to show our posts. So we've got a single post page. We need something for our static pages. So this is right here. Our front page is going to be a general static page. So for that, I'm just going to let it use whatever we're using for our static pages. We're going to have our blog post index page, which is going to really be the same design as our archive page. Same thing with our search result page. That's going to have the same design as our archive page. And then of course, we're going to have our 404 page. So given all that, which templates do we need? Let's erase this here. Well, we'll start with our static page because this is going to be the easy one. Our static page maps straight back to page.php. Same thing with our 404 page. This is just going to be made by 404.php. Our posts is going to be made by single.php. And then we have an option. We can do an archive page using archive.php, a blog post index with home, and a search result page with search. Or I can let all these pass through and simply use index.php to handle all three. And that's how we're going to do it. So we'll end up with an index.php, a single.php, a page.php, 404.php, and then we'll have some template parts. Before we move on, I want to introduce you to the concept of template parts and partials. Whenever we create a website or really write any other kind of code, we want to avoid duplicating work as much as possible. So when we're looking at our mockups, we want to take a broad look and see what kind of things are repeated on different pages and probably break those off into separate files. For example, we can see that the header here is the same across every page. Same thing with the footer, that's going to be the same across every page. We also have this sidebar with the categories and tags that's going to be the same across every page. So those are things that we're definitely going to want to standardize and probably pull out so that we don't have to create it over and over again for each of these page templates. The other thing that we want to think about is what kind of information our users are going to need to edit. So it's one thing for us to hard code things in a theme, but when we deliver it, we're going to want the end users to be able to make some changes. So things like these social icons, for example, we probably don't want to hard code in the theme. So this is something that we're going to want to give the users a way to edit. Same thing with this company information down here, our logos, and our menus. And of course, we also have the content sections in different pages that people are going to need to edit. So it's probably worth jotting all that down while you're looking at your mockups so that you know what kind of things that you want to create template parts for and what kind of things that you want to give user controls for. I just mentioned template parts, and these work very similar to page templates that we just talked about, except instead of holding the content for the entire page, it's just going to hold the content for a part of it, and we're going to inject it inside of a page. Here we're looking at the underscores theme, which is very popular, and we're looking at the search.php file. So this is going to be the template that comes up when someone does a search. And you'll notice here at the top, we've got this get header. And what that's going to do is it's going to get the template part header.php. That's got all the header information. Then we come down here and we do some stuff. Then we come down here to the loop, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And inside of that, we're going to get template parts for content. And if we look inside template parts, that's going to be usually in a template-parts folder. On block themes, it's just going to be called template. And we look at that content.php, and this is what's going to display the content of that page. Coming back to our search.php, we come down, and then we have get sidebar and get footer. And those are going to show the footer.php, and it's going to show our sidebar.php. And that sidebar.php says, if that sidebar is active, then go ahead and show it. This might sound complicated, but it makes a lot of sense, especially when you have a lot of templates and a lot of different pieces to it. For example, if you had 10 different templates, you wouldn't want to have to go to each one of them and change it every time that you made a change to the sidebar. The same thing might apply to an archive template. For example, you might have this block right here that shows your post information that you need to repeat along a regular archive template. You might have an archive template for search results or one for date or author archive that shows the same block but has a different format on the rest of the page. And you wouldn't want to have to recreate this block for every one of those archive templates. You want to standardize it, create it one time, and then show it in each place over and over again. So yes, for small themes, it might be a little bit complicated, but for larger themes, it's going to save you a ton of time and effort. Now that we've talked about those kind of things that we want to repeat on different pages, we need to decide how we want to repeat them. And we've got a few different ways that we can do that. One is going to be by using those template parts that we just talked about. The other is going to be by creating widget areas. The big difference between widget areas and template parts is that users can actually come in and modify those widget areas. So for example, this sidebar with categories and tags, we could create it as a template part, or if we created this as a widget area, people could come in and they could put in just categories or just tags, they could rearrange it, they could add additional information, and it would show up there in the sidebar area of the template. We also need to think about how people are going to enter things like the logos and the social icons and the company information here. Do we want to put those in the customizer, or do we want to create a widget area for them? There is no hard and fast answer, and a lot of it really is going to depend on your particular theme and how your users are going to work with it.